ensure that government's salary budget doesn't skyrocket? Is that the logical explanation for why the government's trying to ensure it doesn't become too big a government, and therefore even if there are vacant posts, those aren't being filled? Or do you think this is actually short-sightedness, because filling in some of those resources could possibly create greater efficiency in terms of what the government is able to deliver?
See, in my understanding, the jobs or the vacancies which exist in the government are primarily in railways, the post and telegraph department, and many positions which are redundant now, the post of PAs and the stenos, etc., and the clerks. So these posts are actually not required to be filled in, and therefore these posts have been carried without being filled in for quite some time. The current attempt to probably fill them up is perhaps not very efficient. It will not add. But let me just make a comment on the main question which you are addressing today about the apparent contradiction between the Mood of the Nation report about the handling of the economy, which to a great extent majority seems to be saying that it's been handled well, whereas on the employment as well as your own status since 2014, which gives a negative sort of marks for that. To my mind, if you relate these two, the fact that the questions which pertain to you personally, the question about the employment, about your own status since 2014, indicate that this has led to sufferings, it has deteriorated. Whereas the questions which are larger, broader, which don't directly connect to you, where you go more by impressionistic sort of narrative, you seem to be saying that it might have been done better. The economy has not actually been handled very well in last 3 years. Our 4 years now, if you include the current year as well, 4 years average growth rate, including the contraction in the COVID year, is less than 3% per annum. That growth is the lowest growth ever in this country. In a situation where you have this kind of growth, where your exports are now declining, where unemployment is increasing, it's very, to my mind, inaccurate to say that the economy has been handled well.
You know, we can add to that, because when you look at who benefited most from the NDA's policies, and this is significant, in our survey, 58% are saying big business has benefited the most, only 11% felt small businesses have benefited, salary class 8%, farmers 8%, daily wages 6%. So the perception, and this has been projected by the opposition, especially Rahul Gandhi, that this is a country of economic inequalities. There's a sense when you look at these numbers that clearly that it does resonate.
Zafar Islam, you want to respond to this? A 10% increase in 1 year in the number of those, in the percentage of those who say your government is helping big business the most?
Well, let me respond to all the questions so far we have discussed. First of all, the economy. I think India does not exist in isolation. It's a part of the global economy. And you should also take feedback from the global communities as well about the handling of Indian economy by the India government under Modi ji. The respondents, maybe the very small number is 140,000 out of the 140 million people. But still, away from that, I think you should also pose the question, the handling of economy in difficult situation, the global economy is in bad shape. Still, how we are handling the economy, and under Modi ji, and when during the financial crisis, how the economy was handled by Manmohan Singh ji. I think we'll get the response from most of the people that the economy in this situation, distress situation, is still being managed very well, and we are still exist as one of the largest and one of the fastest growing economies.
No, so we can take that question. We can take that question. Let me show the response to that question. Who managed the economy better? Narendra Modi, say 51% of the respondents. Manmohan Singh say 36%, a 15% gap there,
There you
Anshul
go.
Abhijit. Problematic because Manmohan Singh was the economist, and yet at this time, more than half the respondents seem to think Prime Minister Modi is doing a better job of handling the economy.
No, so
Rahul,
we
can I
come
just
back,
complete,
Rahul,
please?
to
One-
that central
more
paradox
observation.
which you just said, and it's a question that's been asked to us all the time from people from the Congress, particularly after elections. Listen, why are people voting for Modi when there's so much of economic suffering? I mean, that is the central paradox here, which comes back here. Well, it's nothing unusual. Psephologists know about this all the time, that people are willing to forego or undermine their own economic suffering because there's a larger sentiment at work. I mean, it could be the peddling of religion, it could be majoritarianism, it could be some other reason. So it does not mean that people don't recognize, and that comes out in your survey, that there is no unemployment, there is no poverty. In fact, there is a perfect storm here. What this government has been very deviously and slyly doing is, peddle formal high-frequency data and make it look like the general health of the economy in reflection of a general health of the economy. The fact is that the informal economy has been completely devastated, particularly after demonetization, GST, and then you had the pandemic. It's also true that you've been feeding big business and taking money out of the hands of the poor. And I'll give you examples of this. This is not a perception of propaganda. You've cut corporate tax from 30 to 22%, right? You have a PLI scheme which has turned out to be a disaster because the chief economic advisor himself has said that except for two industries, mobile and pharma, they have not been creating any jobs. Right, so you've subsidized big industry. Then what you've done is lowered interest rates, so to think that no, private industry will actually create more jobs, there'll be more manufacturing. But what they ended up doing was deleveraging. Right,